The Yu-Gi-Oh anime and some of the original releases for the TCG all came out when I was in first grade, but it wouldn't be until second grade when it really took over my entire school. Instead of doing fun things like going down slides or playing in sandboxes or climbing all over a jungle gym, I sat there and played Yu-Gi-Oh with a bunch of people from my class pretty much every single recess. This went on for years, and while it is in two distinct categories, before we knew the rules and after we knew the rules, it still was a huge part of my childhood. In today's video, I want to tell you about recess Yu-Gi-Oh and why it was so fun, and also sort of reminisce about some of the things that happened while I played Yu-Gi-Oh at recess. This video is going to be a little bit more laid back, and I really do hope that this inspires you guys to share your own recess Yu-Gi-Oh stories, because I know for a fact, after reading my comment section, that many of you guys also enjoyed playing Yu-Gi-Oh at recess. First, I want to tell you about today's sponsor though. Today's video is sponsored by Ridge Wallets. A lot of people carry around outdated, bulky leather wallets, but the Ridge Wallet isn't any of those things. It's sleek, it's industrial, and makes for the perfect upgrade from your old wallet. They can easily hold up to 12 cards, and there's even a convenient money clip on the back for carrying cash. Ridge Wallets even have a lifetime warranty, so you'll never need to buy another wallet. The Ridge team is so confident that you'll like it that they'll let you try it out for 45 days, and you can send it back for a full refund if you don't absolutely love it. If you're interested in picking up a Ridge wallet, make sure you click the link in the description below, and don't forget to use promo code Dzeeff in all capital letters for 10% off your order. Anyway, back to recess Yu-Gi-Oh! So like I said, there were two distinct categories. You had before we knew how the game worked and after we knew how the game worked. I don't have any exact dates here. I would imagine that it was first and second grade mostly where we didn't know how to actually play Yu-Gi-Oh! And then third through like sixth grade we actually did know how the game worked. Either way though, I feel like what was so appealing about playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In elementary school and playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At recess was that it was kind of close to like the anime in terms of whatever deck you had like fit your personality. Each person had their own special boss monsters, each person had their own style of deck building, and that was really cool, especially for younger kids. That being said, I don't really understand how we played the game before we knew how to play the game, which I know sounds weird. If I remember correctly, and it's been a long time since first and second grade, but I think we played it like that war card game that you play with just a normal 52 card deck, basically just flipping over the top monster on our deck and then seeing whose monster had higher attack or defense. Once again, I don't remember exactly how we used to play. I just remember being very excited to play Yu-Gi-Oh! What I was watching on TV every single week, but I think even once we sort of graduated from not knowing how to play at all, we still didn't really know how to play. I remember that life points in particular were very confusing for many of us. I actually specifically remember playing against some of the older kids at recess, and they knew how life points worked, and we were all very confused. This was also at a time when pretty much no one used any sleeves on their decks, and everyone used like rubber bands and plastic baggies to carry them around. I actually distinctly remember though that some people, myself included, eventually stumbled upon those Ultra Pro deck boxes that sometimes people even use to this day, but those really like cheap deck boxes, those were like the main way of carrying around our decks and our backpacks so that the cards actually didn't get bent. But other than that, I think that the big deal here is that we were just having fun playing the cards. Even if we didn't know what they were doing, it was just cool to play against our friends with these colorful cards and cool effects. And even though we didn't really understand what all of the mechanics of the game were, it was still just a good time for everyone, and everyone got involved. Keep in mind here that at this point in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, there was a meta game. A lot of people don't think there was a meta way back in the day when the game first came out, but they probably just weren't playing at bigger tournaments. And I know for sure I was not playing at any tournaments where there was a meta. And there's something special about only having cards available from packs and starter decks occasionally. finally. This was before structure decks, those wouldn't be released for a couple of years, and if you guys have looked at those older starter decks of Yugi, Kaiba, Pegasus, and Joey, yeah, they didn't have that many good monster cards, which meant that you had to get more packs to hopefully make your deck a little bit better. I've actually talked about this before in a past video from a while ago when sealed only Yu-Gi-Oh was really taking off on YouTube. I think a lot of the appeal of that series is that it brings a lot of people back to their childhood when they didn't buy singles. That's not to say there's anything wrong with buying singles. It is economically usually the better choice. However, there is a sort of charm to not knowing deck lists, not really having resources to look up topping strategies and which cards were the best, and just having your own sort of metagame at your individual school. There was some pushback at my school about Yu-Gi-Oh! That was back when people were really afraid of it being witchcraft and stuff like that. Not from the majority of parents, but some of the parents were a little bit concerned, so the game unfortunately got banned at my school. People still played it, people were still excited to play it, but if you had your cards out in class, you got them taken away by the teacher. The other problem from a parent's perspective that was a little bit more reasonable had to do with trading. No parent wants to spend a lot of money buying a starter deck or some packs or even an individual card for their kid, only to have that kid traded away for some crappy card at their school. This actually happened from time to time. I was one of the people that fell for one of these scams. I even remember it to this day. I traded away some rare card, maybe even a Blue Eyes or a Dark Magician, for a Mystical Sheep number 2. Yes, a Mystical Sheep number 2. What a great card. Basically, some asshole told me that Mystical Sheep number 2 could hypnotize any other monster and then it could steal it and it was overpowered. Once again, this was before we knew how effects worked, which was a real shame. As the years went on, less and less people played Yu-Gi-Oh, but I think even through like 5th and 6th grade, there was like a dedicated community at my school in my class that still wanted to play the game, and we did eventually learn the rules. I'm not saying we never knew how to play, we did have a basic understanding of how Yu-Gi-Oh worked by that time, and I think that that was a lot more fun. I remember sitting at recess with like 10 of us all playing different duels, and it was really exciting. Everyone had their own decks, everyone had their own favorite cards. That really was peak Yu-Gi-Oh in my mind, at least at a casual level. And this is something that I feel is very hard to go back to once you've discovered online Yu-Gi-Oh things, once you've discovered articles or videos or forums. I think it's very difficult to go back to that sort of naive way of thinking about the game as a whole. But there were two big events in my school that sort of killed Yu-Gi-Oh for good. The first one was in 5th grade where my deck, my really cool Spellcaster structure deck with a bunch of chaos monsters added in, got stolen out of my desk. And this was a pretty big deal because at this point, I mean, it's not like an unfair trade where both players are getting at least a card out of the deal, even if it's unfair. This is just a kid going out there and stealing another kid's possession, which obviously isn't a good thing. And this led to a discussion at my school and eventually got Yu-Gi-Oh banned. I mean, just banned entirely. Not so much that people would take your cards if you saw them, but that you actually got in trouble if you were seen with Yu-Gi-Oh cards at all. This went on for the entirety of the rest of 5th grade. I didn't really think of Yu-Gi-Oh until 6th grade when we got new teachers, and then Yu-Gi-Oh was sort of back in many ways. It wasn't as big as it was before, but people were still excited. I think Yu-Gi-Oh GX was going on at the time, and 6th grade really was the last big moment for Yu-Gi-Oh in my school. At the beginning of the year, people were just excited to play Yu-Gi-Oh once again. Because we were in a different grade, it no longer was banned, or maybe the parents just forgot about it entirely, who really knows. But as 6th grade goes, as middle school goes, people start to care about popularity, and I think that more and more players sort of dropped the game as the year went on. Players that used to be unashamed about playing a card game at recess suddenly cared a lot more about how other kids thought about them. Not that Yu-Gi-Oh really ever was made fun of at my school, which is kind of weird thinking back to it, but yeah, even the more popular kids played the game, especially at the start of the year. No one really ever got made fun of directly for playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just something that as time went on, people stopped doing to pursue other hobbies. But what ended up killing Yu-Gi-Oh! For good in 6th grade, which happened about halfway through the year, ironically is what inspired me to play Yu-Gi-Oh! For many years after most most of my friends had stopped playing. I can't remember if I went to my first Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals in 5th or 6th grade, but I know that 6th grade is when I really started going on a regular basis, like every other weekend. This was a pretty big deal because as I went to those locals and was playing for prize support and was actually playing against people that were a lot better than me, my deck got better and better. My combos got better, my strategy got better, even though I was still a very casual player with bad deck building and bad combo making and stuff like that. I was at least better than most of the people in my class. I say most because there was one person who I could never beat. He's actually the person that went with me to my very first locals, whether or not that was in 5th grade or 6th grade. Like I said, I can't remember. He played a warrior/hero deck that was way better than anything that anyone else had, myself included. But the whole innocence of not really knowing what the Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta was really only works if every single person in the room is also in that same level of thinking. Because there were two of us that had gone to locals and started building our decks even a little bit better than our opponents, suddenly it became a situation where people didn't want to play anymore. For some players, like my friend and I, this inspired us to build better decks and sort of opened up an entire world of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually being played at a local level. For this reason and other reasons, like people just wanting to do other things, 6th grade was pretty much the last time that I saw Yu-Gi-Oh! Being played at that school. There was one kid that had to move away after that year that I became friends with, and he actually really enjoyed playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All the way through the end of the year, which is pretty crazy to think about, that so many people at the start of the year really enjoyed playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like every single recess, but by the end of it, almost everyone had forgotten about their cards. Oh, and years later, I went to a birthday party for one of my classmates, and I saw my old deck box that had been stolen back in 5th grade, and the worst part of the whole thing is that I knew that person didn't even play Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day. He just stole it to be a jerk. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed my walk through memory lane here. There are many things that I didn't even mention in today's video that I've mentioned in live streams, like how I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In the first place, but for today's video, I wanted to mostly just focus on recess Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, and the rise and fall of Yu-Gi-Oh! At my own school. I'll see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.